Well, again, Joe Biden called the CBO the gold standard of budget scoring a while back, but now they're all singing a different tune. Democrats saying it's fake. Joining me now to talk about this and some other things, we welcome Arkansas Senator John Boozman. Senator Boozman, welcome, sir. Just, I found this memo from Secretary Janet Yellen, and she says explicitly, I quoted it in the first block, explicitly that the Biden plan was always to be permanent, but that they made some things temporary in order to achieve consensus. Now, if that isn't truth-telling inadvertently, then the CBO has the story exactly right. They knew what they were doing, Senator Boozman. They knew exactly what they were doing with these gimmicks, and basically the CBO called them on it and got it right.
No, you're exactly right. You could go down and listen to the congressional testimony, the debate as they've talked about these things, and they've always said that they wanted to get these things permanent. As you know, the gimmick is that you have the pay for over 10 years for the entitlement that lasts only a year. So it's absolutely crazy. I think we need to give Lindsey Graham a big thanks, the ranking member on the Budget Committee. He did a great job of really pressing CBO to score this. And it's not just CBO, Larry. As you know, there's been a couple of outside groups, Wharton School of Business. They came out. Theirs was very much the same thing as CBO found.
So I don't, on the floor, you got, what do you got, 2 weeks till Christmas or some such. How can these arguments from the Democrats that this scoring is fake, to use one phrase, how can it hold up? I mean, everybody knew it was the worst kept secret in town, Senator. That's what I'm saying. In other words, there are things that are legitimately up for debate. I get that, I've been in and out of that game for quite some time. But this thing, it's like the worst kept secret in Washington was these gimmicks. And the CBO just called on them. And a few years ago, Biden himself called the CBO the gold standard. I mean, I'm pressing the point because there's so much baloney. And this is one of the reasons why Joe Biden's polls are crashing, including his polls, Senator, on honesty, okay? People think this is dishonest, which it is.
Well, I think what happened was Joe Manchin said, look, I want a bill that comes in at about $1.5 trillion, around that range. And so somebody at some point said, okay, we've got to do this. And then they crafted this bill using the smoke and mirrors to get in theoretically by using the gimmicks and this and that so that they were in that range to try and get a vote out of Senator Manchin. The problem they've got is that even he has come out and said, look, this is not right. CBO is saying this. These other outside entities are scoring in the same way. And so because of that, they've got a real problem in selling to the public. I think you're exactly right. I think that's why President Biden has unprecedented low poll numbers right now.
Yeah, and I think Joe Manchin, I don't know, at least in West Virginia, has very high poll numbers because he's been a truth teller and he's been consistent. Senator Boozman,
he's a square shooter.
Pardon? Yes, he is. Yes, right.
The only thing I would say is that, it's really remarkable. It seems like yesterday, and myself and several other senators would come over to the White House. President Trump would be sitting across from us. You would be right to his right with your team. And we were talking about cutting taxes, having cut taxes. We were talking about reducing regulation and had the best economy in 50 years. Now we're talking about 6.8% inflation. And when I go home, I thought it was really interesting as you were visiting with the panel. When I go home, the business people are talking about labor. They're talking about supply chains, things like that. The regular man on the street is talking about inflation. The fact that his food is going up dramatically, his gasoline. He knows he's going to be colder this winter because of a 30 to 35% increase in heating. Those are the things that the American public care about. Nobody's asking me to get a check.
Interesting. That, by the way, is one of the polls that Liz Peek cited. The check stuff last spring didn't really work. It didn't really take. And that includes, by the way, the child care allowance, which is essentially just a direct funding. Didn't really take. Let me ask you, in Arkansas, you got a pretty big farm community. Now, what are they saying about this whole inflation story?
Well, they don't like the policy at all in the sense of the bill, the Green New Deal. That's going to dramatically increase their fertilizer cost, their input cost with gasoline, diesel, things like that. The other thing that they don't like is the pay-fors. What they were trying to do, and the farm community really rose up, and thanks to you, Larry, also people like yourself that really explained what it would do, but doing away with stepped-up basis, dramatically increasing capital gains, getting rid of the 1031 land exchange. These are things that really do have them upset. The latest thing is this, when your bank account churns and you get $10,000, all of a sudden it's going to the IRS. That has lots of people in farm country, lots of people throughout the country, very, very concerned.
Yeah, I call it Snoop Snoop. Actually, our friend Ron Wyden,
it's unbelievable,
chairman of the Senate Finance Committee, he's still pushing unrealized capital gains on millionaires and billionaires. No transaction, just every year. Is that thing going to go? I mean, actually, Senator, I don't really know what the tax policy is going to be coming out of the Senate Finance Committee. They haven't really been specific at all, so far as I can tell.
Well, that's the problem. They hadn't been specific about anything. They're going to spend $90-some-odd billion on agriculture. I'm actually the ranking member on agriculture. We've had no hearings. We had no Republicans being involved in these things at all. The same is true of the finance and all the other committees. So that also is a huge problem in itself.
I want to ask you one note. Did Mitch McConnell give in too easily on the debt ceiling? Because, Senator, there was scheduled to be an across-the-board budget cut. From prior deals, budget caps had been violated, and there would have been roughly a $400 billion so-called sequester, which means an across-the-board budget cut. But now this debt deal, as I understand it, takes that completely out of play. And I'm just saying, I don't want to cause havoc. I don't want to default on the debt. But I'd love to cut $400 billion out of the federal budget for a change.
Well, I think Republicans early on were very clear, and we did send a mixed message. The other thing that we haven't talked about is the fact that Democrats have already spent $1.9 trillion on the so-called COVID package. A lot of it doesn't even start getting spent till after 2023. So you've got $1.9 trillion. You've got this other $5 trillion of spending. Republicans basically said, you know, if you're going to spend that money, then you need to raise the debt ceiling. You need to increase it to $2.5 trillion, whatever it's going to be, not Republicans. And I bought into that. I agreed with it very much. And as a result, did not vote for the bill the way it was done.
All right, we'll leave it there. Senator John Boozman of Arkansas, thanks for visiting, sir. Happy holidays.